All right. Welcome, everyone. It is June 19th, 5 o'clock. I'll call the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. We'll establish a quorum. We have all board members present. We have Maritza Gonzalez-Cooper, Jessica Davila, Garrett Wilson, Dr. Thomas Price, Superintendent, myself, Carlin Fryer, Rich Senna, Christy Schmidt, and Dr. Joe Tidwell. At this point in time, we will go into closed session, first to discuss personnel under section 551.071, .074, and .082. We will also do security assessment discussion under 551.089 and deliberation regarding purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property pursuant to 551.072 of the Texas Government Code. So it is now 5:02, and we will go into closed session. All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, so we will call the meeting back to session from our closed session into open session. We still have a full quorum with us. We have Maritza Gonzalez-Cooper, Jessica Davila, Garrett Wilson, Superintendent Dr. Thomas Price, myself, Carlin Fryer, Rich Senna, Christy Schmidt, and Joe Tidwell. At this point in time, Brian, if you want to start the meeting off with the pledge, a moment of silence, and we'll go from there.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise? And gentlemen, please remove your caps as we join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. And now please remain standing for a moment of silence and prayer. Please be seated.
Thank you, Brian, for leading that. Normally, we obviously have ROTC and students to lead us, but in the summertime, we get to do that ourselves. Everyone had a chance to review the agenda, and are there any questions or changes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I move we approve the agenda.
A motion and a second. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Brian, back to you for commendation.
Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Price, Board of Trustees, and our esteemed guests tonight. If you haven't been to one of our meetings before, this is my favorite part. This is where we get to recognize outstanding accomplishments of our students and staff. So if we could have our board members and Dr. Price come down for our photographs. Tonight, we're going to have a total of 5 commendations, including a team that made history this year, and we'll also honor some of our great parent volunteers as well. Our first commendation, we honor the 2023 UIL Class 5A State Bronze Medalist Champion Chargers baseball team. The Chargers qualified for the state tournament for the first time in school history. In the playoffs, the Chargers advanced through 5 rounds, including winning the regional semifinals and the regional championship in a thrilling 3-game series win. Champion won the Region 4 Class 5A title by beating Leander Rouse 2-1 in the best-of-3 series to advance to the Final Four. At the state tournament, the Chargers fell to Argyle in the state semifinals at Dell Diamond to earn the bronze medal. The Chargers closed out their historic season with a 33-12-1 record, and they made history for the Champion Chargers baseball program. In addition to being honored here tonight, our superintendent, Dr. Price, would like to present a superintendent's proclamation to the Chargers as well. So Dr. Price will hand this out.
It's been a busy year for us, a good busy year, going out and congratulating our students on their accomplishments. And I want to tell you, I was able to listen to your game that we talked about on a boat in the Caribbean, and y'all kept us all entertained. So thank you very much for a great ride. And I will tell you what I've had the honor of telling quite a few of our teams this year. I know you wanted the gold, but I guarantee you there's 250 other schools that would trade that bronze in a moment. You made us very proud, and thank you for your accomplishments.
Thank you, sir. And we'd like to thank the parents and supporters of the Chargers. If you're here as a parent or a supporter of this team, would you please raise your hand too? Because we want to thank you for supporting the Champion Chargers. One more time for the state bronze medalist Champion Chargers baseball team. Thank you all for being here tonight, and we look forward to watching you again next season. Our next commendation honors the Boerne ISD Whole Child Department for winning a national award. Let's give the Whole Child Department a round of applause this evening. BISD was the recipient of the inaugural Impact Award from Aperture Education. The honor was announced at the annual Vision Summit in Denver. The award was presented to BISD based on its Whole Child initiative. The district was honored with this national award thanks to its innovative approaches to providing students and teachers with the tools they need to develop strong social and emotional skill sets. Congratulations to the Whole Child Department. Let's give them one more round of applause for the inaugural Impact Award. Our next commendation celebrates Champion Chargers boys basketball coach Jaime Lira, who is not with us, but we want to honor him anyway. Let's give Coach Lira a hand. Coach Lira was named the Texas Association of Basketball Coaches Assistant Coach of the Year. This is a statewide honor. Coach Lira helped lead the Chargers to tremendous success, and they advanced to the 5A Final Four last season. And this year, they finished with a 31-6 record to post back-to-back 30-win seasons. So our congratulations goes out to Coach Jaime Lira of the Champion Chargers boys basketball team. Let's give Coach Lira one more hand. We'll have Dr. Hinojosa send him the video so he can watch us clapping for him later on. Our next commendation honors one of our own, Yvette Arena, the Executive Director of the Boerne Education Foundation and Boerne ISD Community Partnerships. Yvette is one of only 13 women selected to receive the prestigious Women of Distinction Award from the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. This is a statewide award, and each year the TMACC recognizes remarkable women from across the state that have demonstrated exceptional achievements and leadership in their community. Yvette has also won numerous awards from the Texas School Public Relations Association. Congratulations to Yvette Arena for her statewide award. Congratulations, Yvette. Thank you very much for being here. And our final commendation is a special one. If we could call out our PTOs to come on up. Dr. Price has a special thank you for the Boerne ISD PTOs, so come on down.
We wanted to we finished a great year, a lot of wonderful things happening, student growth, saw accomplishments, but we could not have done any of that, whether it's academic or whether it's on the football field or on stage, without the support of our PTOs. And we have some of the strongest PTOs I've ever been involved with. If we need something, they're always there. They give us input, and we just wanted to take a few seconds just to tell you very much thank you for what you do for us. Thanks.
Let's have one more hand for our fantastic PTOs. Thank you very much for all of your support. And Mr. President, that concludes commendations, so I yield the floor back to you, sir.
All right, thank you, Brian. We do not have a Boerne Insider presentation at this board meeting, again, because it's during the summertime. So the next item for consideration is action, if any, required on items discussed in closed session. Don't believe we have any, so we'll move on to the next item, which is visitor comments and testimonials. And we do have 2 speakers signed up to speak tonight. Our decorum is the board encourages comments about the district from citizens of the district or from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so at this time. The board asks that each participant's comments pertain to public education and be no longer than 3 minutes. The overall time limit for comments is 30. Remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on our agenda. If an issue mentioned is listed on tonight's agenda, the board will defer discussion on the issue until the appropriate time during the meeting. The board encourages the public to discuss concerns with an appropriate administrator who has the authority to address the concerns. Concerns should be expressed as soon as possible to allow for early resolution at the lowest possible administrative level. Finally, please be aware the rules of decorum will be enforced during the public comment period and throughout the meeting. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Those who choose to engage in disruptive behavior may be asked to leave, and each participant is legally responsible for the content and consequences of his or her own statements. We do have 2 speakers. First speaker tonight is Mr. Mike Schultz. Good evening, Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Fryer, how are you? So, having sat where you are, having sat on the TASB board, former mayor of Boerne for 4 terms, 3 minutes. I want you to know I've been rehearsing all afternoon and I've cut it down to 44. It's the best I can do. A couple of reasons that I'm here tonight. First of all, to see your smiling faces, but Tommy, to thank you for the years of service that you have had to BISD. BISD has been very fortunate over the last 3 superintendents that we've had here with John Kelly, David Stelmacheski, and now yourself. The challenge will be to this board and what you've got to look forward to in a very challenging environment. But Tommy, first and foremost, I wanted to thank you. It was a pleasure working with you. I wish you nothing but the best. We talked about this a number of different times, and we knew that the time was coming at some point, but I want to wish you nothing but the best, you and your family. But for you, keep that smile on your face. You're going to need it through the process very much. It's a challenging environment, But your challenging is to find those representatives that can come here, or candidates that will look something like or act something like a John Kelly or a David Stelmacheski or a Tommy Price. So I encourage you to look back at the qualities that they brought to this district. They were the right person at the right time. And there's another one that is sitting out there right now that you're going to have to vet through some real weeds and some real challenges. But I know that you will do an outstanding job. Myself, along with a lot of other people in this community, will be praying for you. God bless, and good luck to you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Next speaker is Jerry Lamping. Good evening, Mr. Lamping.
Good evening, President, Superintendent, board members. As you know, I'm the current president of the Kendall County Retired Teachers Association. We're a chapter of the Texas Retired Teachers Association, which is an advocate group for retired school personnel through Texas. We're also members, and we advocate and look at the teachers' retirement system, which is the annuity program for retirement income for retired teachers. I'm probably the only one in here tonight that gets an annuity from the TRS, but most of you, I think, pay into it, and I appreciate that. But I'm here to report that our governor has finally signed Senate Bill 10, and that's one step in that we've been working on with Texas Retired Teachers Association for over a decade, trying to get some kind of bill passed that would provide additional income for our retired school workers. So in Senate Bill 10, which was passed unanimously, there was $5 billion, almost $5 billion from state funds, which are going to go to TRS, in addition to what you guys contribute and what they get from their income. So it's a big, big plus. We're going to get a supplemental check. Some of the older teachers will get a supplemental check to offset their losses with inflation. But there's an amendment that has to be passed in November, and so we're going to need your support again to get that amendment passed. We appreciate your support that you gave us to get Senate bill. I know. Well, I don't know, but I think some of you guys worked very close with Senator Campbell in getting Senate bill even into consideration, and then finally through the committees and everything to get it to the state where the governor could sign it. So we appreciate that. We need your support again now in November to get the amendment passed. I also want to say we appreciate the early payment discount that you provide for the property taxes. I know now you're able to take some of that funds and invest it and get a return, so it's not a complete loss. But as a citizen, as a taxpayer, and a senior in this county, we sure appreciate the early discount that you provide for the property taxes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Lamping. All right, that's the end of visitor comments and testimonials. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone would want to pull from the consent agenda or discuss? Comment for after? Okay. If there are no current comments, then I would entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion and a second. Any additional comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Dr. Tidwell?
Thank you for turning my mic on. A new principal for Herf Elementary, Jennifer Hammond. I think you're here.
live within.
The only other one I wanted to mention, which nobody, well, just our new, make sure I get your title right, our new Executive Director of Operations, who's been here before and been with us lately again, but Mark, Mr. Stahl, just wanted to point that out, that moving on to a different position and in that Executive Director position, you know, filling in for the big shoes, Mr. Acosta, who's still going to be here with us in a different capacity, but I think that's a pretty big deal, and we're very excited to be able to have you in this new capacity.
And also in that movement of Henry leaving, Mark moving up, and Romero, also thank you for agreeing to take on that new position with us. You've been a great add, both of you, over the past year, and we'll be there to help us, but we're looking for you to make sure we get those things built, so thank you. Yeah.
And I know I mention it almost every school board meeting, but this one probably won't be that long. But really, the job that all of you do and all the people working for you, particularly with, I know we probably have an update anyway, but how much we're already through on funding and getting in progress projects from the initial bond. I mean, we're knocking that out faster than I've seen anybody do. The fact that you're doing this, not CM at risk, but basically managing it all yourself, which is an incredible amount of work, saves us a lot of money, but almost nobody does it because it's an incredible amount of work that you don't get a big bonus for doing. So just really appreciate all that. And I know it's hard if you're not into contracting, not used to doing it, to understand the details. But what we have and what all these folks, men and women in this department, are doing is spectacular. And there's a very real outcome to that, which is savings of literally millions of dollars to this district because they're willing to put in the work that a lot of other people don't. So thank you all very, very, very much.
And to back up what Joe has said, just one example of that, and we've mentioned it at meetings in the past, but our elementary school number 8 is coming in on budget, and it's anywhere from $6 to $10 million less than similar sized elementary schools being built in the San Antonio area, and it's even more in Austin. So that is a tribute to your good work with the designers and the architects in protecting the taxpayers' dollar.
Very well said. Next item is going to be governance. Board member reports. Dr. Tidwell, you want to start?
Absolutely. So today I had a technology committee meeting with Mr. Babcock, and not a lot to report on there. Getting started in with a new set of meetings, getting ready to go for next year and getting things planned. But you've already settled perfectly into the role, and we're just kicking things off. So more to come after future meetings.
Okay. Christy, do you have anything to report? No? Mr. Senna?
Yeah, I've got an update on the legislative update. Santi, oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, bingo. All right, we're going to go through just an update of what's gone on in the legislature. They finished their 140-day session. I guess they accomplished a few things, but they are coming back for a special session to finish a lot more. One of the things that we had hoped for in the 5 legislative priorities that we passed when we adopted our legislative priorities in August of 2022 was an increase in the basic allotment. Without such, the value of each educational dollar declines due to what's been cumulative inflation of over 19% since 2019. To counter that, we would need a $1,200 increase in the basic allotment from $6,160 to $7,360. That would cost the state $17 billion. That is a lot of money when they had $33 billion in new revenue this year, and property tax relief is a big thing. The state appropriations, there was a couple of bills passed. House Bill 1 is the General Appropriations Act. Governor Abbott signed it yesterday into law. Previously, he had signed Senate Bill 30, Supplemental Appropriation Act. And what that did was that added money into the current biennial budget for the 2023 year. You might hear from some folks out of Austin that House Bill 1 that was passed has the biggest increase in state funding for public ed in the history of Texas, $8.7 billion. And while that money is technically in the budget, due to contingency riders that I will explain shortly, and legislation that did not pass, this is not true. So if you read it in the newspaper or hear somebody talk about it, they can brag about it, but it's not accurate, and we will explain why. The supplemental appropriations, the current budget, Senate Bill 30, it added $7.3 billion to this year's 2023 state budget. However, the education budget that went to TEA was reduced by $8 billion. So people go, how is that possible? As appraisals have gone up over the last couple of years, more of K through 12 public ed funding is coming from local property taxes and not state aid. So consequently, as appraisals have gone up, people pay more in property taxes. Or in the case of Boerne ISD, not only we pay a lot more in Robin Hood, almost $9 million this year. So the state really got a windfall of reduction, and you can see it's due to increased property taxes, slightly lower than expected enrollment statewide, although not the case with Boerne, and $2.4 billion in increased recapture. The legislature did add $1.1 billion dedicated to school safety infrastructure that will be available through grants. How much, I mentioned, the folks in Austin might say it's $8.7 billion, and you could see in the bottom line there, when actually the money that's available as we speak is $4.2 billion, and that's the number in the lower right-hand corner. And this is simply an allocation of where the money is. School safety, in addition to the $1.1 billion of infrastructure, there's $300 million for school safety. They raised the basic allotment or the daily allotment for security from $9.72 per student to $10. So that'll bring us about $3,000 into the district. But they also added $15,000 per campus to pay for armed SROs, which we already have. So that is a help. There was $4 billion in House Bill 1, but the House Bill 100 did not pass. You'll see funding increases in teacher pay. The House and Senate could not agree on their different versions of House Bill 100. What left the House was $5.4 billion. What left the Senate was $4 billion, but it included $500 million for education savings accounts, commonly known as vouchers. So the House didn't want to have vouchers, and they wanted more than the $4 billion. So consequently, House Bill 100 died. And if the Senate and the House cannot come to a resolution in one of these special sessions, what will happen is that $4 billion will sit there in the state budget unspent. Actually, $4.5 billion. $4 billion for public schools, $500 million for education savings accounts. The state does have a constitutional limit of inflation and population growth, and they did not fully spend that money. We believe there's about $1.5 billion still available were the legislature to say, hey, we're going to increase public ed funding even more. Because remember, if you go back a couple of slides, it would have cost the state $17 billion to fully catch up to the inflation we've had since 2019. So it's kind of a challenging situation, and we really don't know where this legislature is going to end up. As you know, property taxes is on the minds of everyone, with vastly increasing home valuations. And this board passed its priorities, and we've gotten 3 out of the 5 of them approved. But one was property tax relief to our taxpayers, so we don't have to pay Robin Hood. The other one was an inflationary boost to the basic allotment of whatever the legislature would do that would help us provide for, better education. So we'll see if anything happens in future special sessions. The governor said, first one's on property taxes, but the House has already left Austin, and they haven't come to a compromise yet. So frankly, it's kind of a mess. TRS Active Care, the state put in almost $600 million to help keep premiums down. We've talked about the increase in the Colden penny yield that generated $2.4 billion of extra money for public ed. And other thing that was on our legislative priority list was the new instructional facilities allotment. So basically, just under half of the money that the folks may claim is going to public ed has actually been authorized or appropriated. Jerry, you heard Jerry Lamping say before, there's a 13th check going out, $2,400 one-time payment for those 70 to 74 and $7,500 for those 75 and over. They did get a cost of living adjustment. This was needed because there had not been a COLA to our retired teachers in many years. And it was expensive. It was almost $4 billion that the state allocated. Okay, there was no, House Bill 100 didn't pass, which would have generated extra money for public ed and an increase in pay beyond what we're going to adopt tonight. So there's no extra state-funded raise, but how about a license plate? Okay, House Bill 108 passed, which allows for specialty license plates for classroom teachers with at least 15 years of service, and it's only $10. And a specialty license plate for retirees. I'm not making this up, Dr. Price. This has actually happened. $5 for retirees. So Jerry, if you want a retiree, $5, you got it. Okay. All right. Okay. Bills that did not pass. I mentioned House Bill 100, school finance, ESAs, education savings accounts. That was originally in Senate Bill 8. That did not pass. Open enrollment transfers. This would have allowed, frankly, any student anywhere in the state of Texas to go to any district they wanted to. That did not pass. There was a teacher pay retention thing, along with other things that were a result of the task force that the governor put together on promoting teacher retention, and that did not pass. Senate Bill 1814, which Wes has talked about, which would have required lowering INS rates instead of paying off debt early. That didn't pass, and you can see what else is included in there. Oh, and the early payment discount for paying your Robinhood of 4%, that didn't pass either. And you can see the uphill climb in that little illustration on the right. Those things didn't have enough to make it past the line. Okay, our legislative priorities, out of the 5 that we established, 3 of them have been accomplished. At the top there with a check mark. Pending and waiting, just like those kids are waiting in line there to see the doctor, is property tax relief and an increase in the basic allotment. So that is the update on what's going on with the legislature.
Any questions for Rich? All right, Garrett?
Yeah, we did have a finance committee meeting this month. I'm not going to go too deep into it because we went over pretty much the same stuff in the board workshop that we all attended, but I did want to point out a couple things from the finance committee meeting. One, we've got $17 million in debt that we're going to pay off early by the end of December. Which, to put that in perspective, we've sold about $110 million in bonds so far from this bond set for the 2022 bond, and so that's really good news that we've sold 110 out of the 165, and by the end of the year, we'll have early defeased with the available funds, 17 million of that, just due to how they're being structured. As we were talking about with the way that we're building the elementary schools, this is something that I think is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, structuring these bonds in a way that we can pay them off early and saving taxpayers over the next decade or two tens and tens of millions of dollars. So that's a huge win.
Mr. Wilson, I'd point out that in past December, we paid off $12 million in debt, so it'll be over $30 million that we'll pay off by the end of the calendar year on that 110.
So even way more than 17 then, yeah.
Way more.
Nearly 30 million.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about 25% of what's been issued so far or sold. So that's really good news. Also in the budget, when we went over the budget, we, similar to what we did last year, we are adopting a slight deficit. But I think the assumptions that we're using are very conservative, and so I think that statistically it gives us a very good probability of coming in at a slight surplus, which we're going to do this year, it looks like. So we kind of did it like we did last year, and I think the assumptions that we're doing are very good. They're very conservative, and so Those were kind of the two key things that I took away from the workshop and the finance committee meeting.
Any questions for Garrett? Jessica? Maritza? All right. I would just mention, obviously, Mr. Schultz mentioned it during public comments. Since our last board meeting, we've made the announcement of the retirement of our superintendent, Dr. Price, at the end of next year. So at our next board meeting in August, we will, as a board, begin the superintendent search process and kind of what that looks like. I think all of us echo Mr. Schultz's comments. You were the right person at the right time. We've really enjoyed your leadership, and we look forward to the final year of your leadership in the district. So, any other comments from board members? All right, we'll move on. Next item is consider nomination for TASB Board of Directors, Region 20, Position A. Rich, if I could kind of lean to you on this. I know we have one nominee from our region already, and you know her, so I'm going to let you lead that conversation.
Yeah, Rolinda Schmidt, who is on the Kerrville ISD Board of Trustees, has been involved in TASB for many years. She's the second vice president now, which means that she'll be president-elect next year, and the year after that, she'll be president. She was recently reelected for a 3-year term in Kerrville. She's a great lady. We reaches out a lot. We speak fairly often, and she's just a really, really good person, and she understands the Hill Country. So I'm delighted that she's running again, and I hope, I hope she doesn't have an opponent, because I think she's doing a great job.
So if I understand the information that we received from TASB correctly, then if we're happy that she has put her name into the hat, we don't have to nominate anyone different, and you're advocating that we probably don't nominate anyone different. So we would skip item B, or not take action on item B unless anybody has any other comments on that. All right, we'll move on to item C, which is approval of the board operating procedures. We discussed these at our board workshop that we had last Wednesday. I think there was only one minor change that was made from the prior year. Are there any comments or questions about the board operating procedures? All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval. I have a motion and I have a second. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Board operating procedures are approved. Those are on the website, I will say. Excuse me, the next item would be our board code of ethics. So at each meeting following the reorganization of our board, so on an annual basis, typically it occurs at this June meeting, our board has traditionally, and would like to do the same this time, approve and endorse a code of ethics for the Board of Trustees of Boerne ISD. We started this tradition probably 2 or 3 years ago, where we kind of go around the room, everybody take a section and read that section. There are 6. I'll withhold reading if that's okay, but Maritza, would you mind kind of starting for us?
Sure. Let's see here. As a member of the board, I shall promote the best interests of the district as a whole, and to that end, shall adhere to the following ethical standards. You want me to read the first?
Sure, you can read the first.
Equity and attitude. I will be fair, just, and impartial in all my decisions and actions. I will accord others the respect I wish for myself. I will encourage expressions of different opinions and listen with an open mind to others' ideas.
Trustworthiness and stewardship. I will be accountable to the public by representing the district policies, programs, priorities, and progress accurately. I will be responsive to the community by seeking its involvement in the district affairs and by communicating its priorities and concerns. I will work to ensure prudent and accountable use of district resources. I will make no personal promise or take private action that may compromise my performance of my responsibilities.
Honor and conduct. I will tell the truth. I will share my views while working for consensus. I will respect the majority decision as the decision of the board. I will base my decisions on fact rather than supposition, opinion, or public favor.
Integrity of character. I will refuse to surrender judgment to any individual or group at the expense of the district as a whole. I will consistently uphold all applicable laws, rules, policies, and governance procedures. I will keep confidential information that is privileged by law or that will needlessly harm the district if disclosed.
Commitment to service. I will focus my attention on fulfilling the board's responsibilities of goal setting, policy making, and evaluation. I will diligently prepare for and attend board meetings. I will avoid personal involvement in activities the board has delegated to the superintendent. I will seek continuing education that will enhance my ability to fulfill my duties effectively.
Student-centered focus. I will be continuously guided by what is best for all students of the district.
Thank you, everyone. With that, is there any other conversation about the Code of Ethics? And if not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll just mention one thing. There's a couple of things I really like, after having done this a number of years about how we operate. And, we just got back from a conference where we get to be reintroduced periodically to how other people operate. And one of the things I like, among other things, is that we actually think this means something. A lot of businesses and organizations, you just sign this thing, it's just a check in the box, whatever. We have used this document internally. And anyway, I just really appreciate the fact that I think we all take it seriously and aren't doing it just as some, I don't know, show or demonstration, but we do it because we mean it. And I think that's great. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, I would entertain a motion.
A motion to adopt the 2023-2024 Board Code of Ethics as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. I am going to pass around, actually, Rich, I'll start that your direction. This is the original for Melanie, and that does get posted in the district offices. One other thing just to mention here is it's kind of related to the board operating procedures and board code of ethics. Some prior board meetings, we've been presented with documents to sign. We as a board take our actions very seriously when we look at those things. We have formed a committee to look at either proclamations or other resolutions and things to see if they are either already being addressed in other policies or procedures or proclamations within the district, and that committee will come back and give us recommendations at future board meetings. Mr. Wilson, you're heading that one up. I appreciate that. So, moving on to reports, Superintendent, Dr. Price.
I'm going to go over a couple of things that we discussed at our workshop and you approved earlier in the Student Code of Conduct. Two big things and things that we will be messaging out to the public, emphasizing to our students. One of the big things is cell phone usage. The policy itself has not changed, but one of the things that we're going to emphasize is that we're going to enforce cell phone usage and when it can be used and when it can't. And it specifically states that cell phones are not to be used during instructional time. I believe since COVID, we've been accommodating. I think that's the best way, with everyone trying to make sure that safety is always going to be our first and foremost out there, and we want to make sure that we were able and our students were able to communicate with their parents. But what it's become is a distraction for the learning environment, and again, we are not enforcing. We're not adding a new rule. We're just going back to what we were doing prior to COVID, and we're asking students to put away their phones. This is not meant to be an I got you. The principals went over several times in meetings about what does this mean, what does this look like, looking for consistency across, especially the secondary campuses. And we will continue to have clarification meetings about what the expectations are, because what we don't need is any one campus to be very lax and another campus to say, okay, this is the rule and we're going to go overboard. There's got to be a happy medium, understanding our students, understanding that this is a way of life for all of us. You look in the audience, you look up here even, cell phones are part of what we do. Again, It's when it starts interfering with the classroom environment, the learning time, that we are going to ask the students to put them away. But also, I think part of what we have to discuss is adult usage of cell phones too. Students mimic what they're modeled. I don't think it's fair at all for us to tell our students to put them away and then a teacher is at the front of the class and using their cell phone to do Wordle. I think we've got to make sure that we're modeling what we expect. So it's going to be some discussions through the principals about expectations in the classrooms. And we are not going back to the days of we hold the phone hostage for money. It's all about communication. We will take them up after multiple warnings, and then there will be parent communication involved and asking for the parent to be our partners and making sure that we keep the learning environment where instruction's the focus. So we will start that communication immediately with the board announcements, and then we'll do further communication throughout. We'll talk about it during orientations and make sure, especially the first couple of days, we have those discussions, and it has to start from the very beginning. A couple of other things that you adopted in the Student Code of Conduct, we had these IDs as part of our culture for multiple years prior to COVID, and somewhere along the lines, it was removed from the Student Code of Conduct. And as safety, it's important we know who's on campus, who's not on campus, and who's there and why they're there. And so this too is one of those things we have to message out over the summer as the why. And again, it's not to play I got you with our students. There will be some consequences that are staggered. It can't be I got you, but we need from the very beginning, from the very first day, this is what the expectation is. Same thing with cell phones. The other thing that was adopted in the Code of Conduct is a slight change in the dress code. We know we went down that rabbit hole a few years ago. We don't want to really address any changes except safety changes. And the safety changes have to do with all the money that we've invested in our cameras. Right now, it's a big thing with hats and even more so with the hoodies. If they're wearing those, we cannot see who they are and identify it. And there's been many instances where Rick's had to go in, try to look at video, and because of the hoodie being on, a hat being over their head, and a hoodie sometimes, it makes it very difficult. And some students are taking advantage of that. Again, it's not an I got you. We have to message it out as a safety issue. And you can still wear your hoodie because it is cold in some of our classrooms. We're not saying leave it at home. We're saying don't put the hood up. And I personally experienced it during our academic signing day. I had over at Champion, a great crowd. We brought kids in, and I looked out in the crowd, and there were a couple of students they were still wearing masks, and they had hoodies on, and we couldn't tell who they were. And we need to know who our students are. We need to know who our adults are on campus. So those are some of the changes that you'll see coming up. The other change that we discussed that we didn't adopt because it's a procedure is clubs. We know that in spring we ran into some problems with our student clubs and what the expectations were. Dr. O'Hare did a super job of getting our staff together and first asking some questions about how this happened. What we found was some, on the adult part, not understanding what the rules were about clubs. How do we form clubs? What's the consistency from school to school? And so we went back. We're going to make sure that and we've already started this, every principal, every assistant principal has a lot of training on what is allowed and what's not allowed in student clubs. Again, we believe in student freedom of choice, but we also listened to why we got in some of the problems, and we are going to do training with any sponsor that is going to head these clubs. We're going to put some requirements in that every club has to apply for clubhood, the ability to be a club. There's minimum requirements. We aren't going to have clubs unless, I think it's 10 students are part of it. They have to go in and they have to create a code of conduct of why they're there, what's their purpose. And a thing that was asked of us that we considered and we're going to adopt, and part of this is parent permission. If somebody wants to be in a club, whether it's the Bass Club or whether that is National Honor Society, we allow the parents to know what's going on so that they can be partners with us and work with their students. We truly understand that our parents have a perspective about their child's needs that we don't have, so we want them to be part of this decision, and so we're making it as easy as possible as we go through. There's several other things and details, but we have a great PowerPoint that we will be posting on our club site. We also we will have a link to the updates as we go in the training that will be required and the forums and everything. We'll post that on our website, get that information out along with information about cell phones, about hoodies, about hats. Again, a lot of this is just us trying to communicate better with the community, with our students about expectations, and learn from the past as we go through. I think that's all I have for today. Any questions?
No questions for Dr. Price? All right, we will move on to the next report, and that is the business office. It's going to be a federal grant application public hearing. Mr. Scott.
There we go. Federal law requires that districts receiving federal funds hold a public hearing to allow for public input related to proposed expenditures. We have in front of you a listing of grants applied for by the district. Just would point out a couple of things about that at this point in time. The first half of that page, title, pretty standard district year. The two grants towards the bottom of the page related to school violence prevention program and the school violence program that $24,000 respectively are competitive grants. Those are normally based on you prove your need by economically disadvantaged status. So you're very, very. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Or do I need to start over? We good? Okay. And the last grant, the Texas School Safety Standards Grant, we have been awarded that by the state already. That'll be used to complete our minimum safety standards for the district. So if there are any questions or concerns,
This is a hearing, right?
this is a hearing.
So we probably need to open the hearing for comments. This isn't a board action, but it's a hearing.
So at this point in time, I would open the public hearing for federal grants proposal.
I'll make one real quick. Tammy took this position over a few years ago, and I've really seen over the years a lot of growth in our federal grants. She does a super job of getting input from the community, from our staff, being flexible, especially with the new regulations and the new requirements of ESSER, been very flexible. So I want to thank Tammy for taking that and really moving that department where we needed it.
Thanks for making that point, Tommy, because just looking at the numbers, it looks like we're going after more money. Hopefully we'll get it, so that's great.
Our biggest problem is most of these, they use free and reduced lunch numbers, and that is a challenge. They don't take into account that the recapture that we pay and how that affects us. They use the other number instead. But Tammy's done a good job of checking those out. Every time I get one, I send it over, and most of the time she has to tell me the bad news that we don't qualify. But
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Price. Mr. Center, are there any other public comments? If not, I will close the public hearing. Again, that doesn't take board action, correct? So we'll move on to action items next. We have Dr. Price.
all right, we reviewed both of these following items in our workshop. We needed to come back and do the formal evaluation. So I won't spend a lot of time, but I will say about the strategic plan is this is the second one we've done since I've been here. I really find it valuable because we pull so many people in, and a lot of times in any organization you get used to hearing one voice or just a set of voices. If we really want to be a reflection of our community, we've got to listen. And part of this is pulling in as many people as possible to help us try to map out where we want to be academically. And if you look at the first strategic plan that we implemented 5 years ago, and realize in the middle of it we had COVID, I really think a lot of the things that we put in place through the strategic plan really resulted in us closing that COVID gap because we were prepared. Also in it, we saw a lot of innovation, and I'm speaking of our two early colleges, with the one we have at the PTech, the one we're about to start with the medical fields. Those all came out of those discussions. The spread of technology and the use of technology in our classrooms came from those discussions, those early discussions. The expectations, what did we want? We didn't want technology to be a electronic worksheet. It truly needed to be a tool, so that's a mindset that came out of that. The robotics going down to elementary class, the electronic gaming that we're doing, all those things came out of those discussions. So I'm very excited to see what comes out of these discussions we've had over the past 3 months. It really sets the foundation. And remember, when we did the first strategic plan, I always talked about how everyone wanted to know what we were going to build next. And the pushback was, until we want to know academically what we look like and what programs we want, we really can't talk about what we're going to build next. And that led us to the foundation of that bond election that passed in last May, 2 Mays ago. When you talk about the wings at both of the high schools, it really came out of those discussions about what kind of programs we wanted. And the same thing will lay the groundwork for our future plan, our long-term facilities plan, with this strategic plan that we're going to vote on tonight. Also, part of it was a really neat, I think, a really neat video to explain the process. And I think we have it and we're ready to play it. Okay, let's watch.
Want a little bit of that hill country magic, as well as the closeness to a metropolitan area.
Such an original place to live.
A little bit off the beaten path, but still has everything you need. And I just don't think you could find a place where you see a greater sense of community.
We've got a lot of staff that's been here for years. They have their kids come to our schools. They live within the community, so the investment is there.
Boerne really focuses on their families and making sure that families are a part of their students' education.
The small town environment allows both staff and students to kind of be themselves and feel comfortable about their surroundings, about coming to school here.
We are really the image of what the community stands for. We take care of their children, we educate their children. Our job is to inspire them to be better people and to go out into the world and do great things.
It's a fast-growing district, And so we're continuing to get more and more people come in, but they're coming for the Boerne experience.
What do we want our schools to look like? Where do we want to grow? And this was a perfect opportunity to bring some people together, have those conversations.
A great way to look at how the district plans for the future.
We looked at what were our successes in the previous plan, what's the work we think we need to do for the future. And so it was a good merging of the previous process and that work with the team this time, looking at how we can build upon that and move forward.
We left our campuses, we left our regular jobs for a number of days to come together just on the strategic plan. That shows the dedication the school district and all the committee members had to seeing this through.
The fact that Boerne is looking to respond to the changes in the world is really empowering.
We continue to promote things that are reinvestments into the community here in Boerne.
Always remember that it's not what we want as a district, it's what the community wants. So we serve the vision and we fulfill the vision of the community. Let's go, Boerne! Let's go! One of my favorite things about this whole strategic plan process was getting to work with students. They know what they would like to see.
It is always important for us as the educator to look at the school through their eyes and through their experience. I think when an adult is ready to step aside and let the voice of a student be heard, we have so much to learn.
They're very thoughtful. They care about their community just as much as the parents and the educators. They're a really great group to work with.
Whenever we work with kids about setting goals and then being able to work toward those goals, whenever you can do that as a community, it really makes a difference.
I know the lens of the student within the district and the lens of the teacher, but I was able now to see the lens of all of those higher positions within the district.
We all got to talk about our understanding of the big picture that we were dealing with and voice our concerns and put that together for one vision and one goal.
I got to really have a voice for every staff member and how we can grow or make sure that everyone feels fulfilled professionally and that they have goals that they can meet and master.
No one component of the district can survive without the other.
All those voices were heard, and layer upon layer, it just kind of builds a really good picture.
The goals that we were setting up is to go along with our vision statement of engage, inspire, and enrich these kids to be awesome humans that are ready to go out into the workforce.
One of the things that just continues to humble me is the honesty of the conversations.
We're really not small anymore. We're 11,000 students, but if you ask anyone, we still feel that way, and that's because we really care about each other, and we take care of each other.
We have such a supportive community. They want what's best for their children. They want to see not only their own children be successful, but they want to see all of the students be successful.
Us being successful with the strategic planning, that would result in just a thriving school district with happy students and teachers, people that feel fulfilled in their jobs.
I'm just very excited about the strategic plan. I think it provides us a good goal, and it's going to keep all of our different communities and committees and members in our community aligned.
A lot of places talk about success, but if we aren't successful with each and every one of our students, we really haven't met that goal.
We want to continue to both be inspired by our community and to inspire.
One of the things that's, I think you should be very proud of is some of your voice came out in this video, and this was not scripted. They really did ask certain people to just come up and talk, and a lot of these things that these individuals said, I've heard come out of your mouths already over the past 7 years. So I want to thank y'all for that and that vision. If you pass this today, what we will be doing is we will be posting this along with a link to the plan, and I'll turn it over to questions or comments.
Anybody have any questions regarding the strategic plan? Brian, I just want to compliment you and the communications team. You can put some of these words on paper and you can read them and get your own interpretation, but delivering it in a message in a video like that, to me, gets the message across on a much stronger basis. And so I appreciate that. I think it's a great way to lead the strategic planning process. So if there aren't any other questions, I would entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move that we approve the strategic plan. And I want to assure people it's a living document. It's something with the scorecard that we look at all the time, and we go beyond just numbers to look at the people, the students, the impact it has on their lives and their achievements. So I'm glad Dr. Price, the district, went through the process.
I think I heard a motion.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other conversation, comments?
I just want to thank the committee for their hard work. I know it was hours pulled away, and so thank you all so much for that, and appreciate those that were leading it. John, Dr. O'Hare, thank you so much. Brian and your team, so fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We have a scorecard.
All right, and this goes into what Rich said. So many districts do strategic plans, and they become a piece of paper and a binder on our shelf. And now, instead of a binder, we put them on a website, and they sit there and never are revisited. The way we put what we've done 5 years ago to make sure that we held ourselves accountable, we created a scorecard. And every year, what we've done is we've come back, we revisit that, make sure it is really the goals that we want to reach, to achieve, to make sure that the strategic plan comes to life and is fulfilled. And it's really evolved over the years. The first year, as you recall, it really was kind of a checklist because that's where we were. We needed to make sure some things were in place, so it became a checklist. From there, it became a true measurement. And what I like the most about it, and I keep saying this, is it truly holds us all accountable. There's 4 pillars. It has to do with student success, which is the most important, to the foundation of being fiscally responsible. And you can't overemphasize one without hurting the other. And so my evaluation is our scorecard, our cabinet, that is their evaluation. So if we, for example, if we have a huge fund balance but end up with a D for our report card from the state in academics, then all of us fail. Wes wouldn't be successful because he's not succeeding because we're not all succeeding. It really does hold us all accountable, makes us have these discussions about what we need to do to fulfill y'all's goals, your dreams, and the action plan. And really, it's become we've had several districts and even TASB reach out to us as a model to use it with other school districts. And I want to thank y'all for your patience as we've developed it. But I think it's very good for keeping us accountable. And we went over it at the board workshop, but I'll take any questions that you have about it.
I don't really have a question. It's more of a comment. I asked at the workshop, how many other districts do this? And I think the answer was few would be on the high side. I did have the opportunity Wednesday evening at one of the TASB conferences I was at on student outcomes. The table that I was at, we talked about accountability and measures, and I talked about the scorecard, and they all looked at me as if I had 6 heads. And no idea what a scorecard even was within a school district. So it was a moment of pride, but certainly something we owe a gratitude to you for developing and permeating through our entire district.
Well, the whole Lone Star governance that we all go through in the OCI, really, we embrace it. And it's an easy way, a one-pager to show what we're all about. And so I think whenever we hear them talking about the Lone Star governance, we're ahead of the curve in it.
Any other questions regarding the scorecard? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the district scorecard for 2023-24.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Mr. Scott, we are to the business section. We have our monthly financial reports first.
Okay, we'll see if I can get the volume right this time. My apologies, Dr. Harrod pointed out that you cannot tell jokes in a hearing on federal funds, so it just threw me off. You have in front of you the financial statements for the year ending, or year to date, excuse me, ending May 31st. That's 92% through the fiscal year. The most significant item in this is the amendment for our 22-23 budget. That'll be the final amendment. This will be the last day that we can adopt amendment to the 22-23 budget. That is mostly just to ensure that we don't have any functions that overexpend. Transportation and extracurricular are the ones that got the closest to that because of fuel prices and the extraordinary amount of field trips we took in extracurricular this year because of the success of all of our students. The other item that's within there, you'll see an increase to function 13 for $207,000, an increase to the debt service function for $117,000 is because of a new GASB statement, GASB 96. I know that y'all were hoping to talk about new GASB pronouncements today, and there are a number of agreements that we had to evaluate, and if those agreements, they're called subscription-based technology agreements, if they meet certain requirements, we have to actually classify current year payments as debt service. We have to recognize an estimated amount that we're going to commit over an estimated term, because these are generally year-to-year contracts, and show them as a capital expenditure, and the offset as other financing sources. So it's a net zero impact. We'll take that. We'll take that on the government-wide statements and turn them into intangible assets, fake debt, and give you a big, long note in the financials. So that is the budget amendment. The district recognized $115,000 in donations this month. Before we jump too far past budget amendment, there is a budget amendment to the Child Nutrition Fund for about $500,000 to recognize the revenues and expenditures incurred in that fund. That this year they're still on track for about a $200,000 surplus in that fund to make the adjustment to cover the activity. Donations, $115,000 this month. The biggest portion of that was recognizing a number of in-kind goods and services donated by the BHS band boosters. About $940,000 recognized in donations from the community this year. Just month to month, extraordinary the amount of great support we receive from the community. Tax collections are right in line, just a little bit below where they were last year, but still over 98%. And with that, I'll certainly entertain any questions that you might have about the statements through May.
Questions for Mr. Scott?
I don't have any questions. I just a comment. You know, the 9 years on the board, it's amazing how consistent the tax collections, are. And I know usually June, we only have a couple million, 2.3 million of uncollected from the tax year, and a good chunk of that's going to come in June. So it's just amazes me how consistent it is over the years.
Sure.
Well, we get 3% in October, and I think Joe mentioned it before. We're one of only, Wes, I believe it's 30 school districts out of 1,025 that gives an early payment discount. Because I own property in Bastrop ISD. I call them up one day. I said, "Where's my discount?" They said, "We don't give discounts." Now, we do in Boerne, and I was upset, to tell you the truth. So saved almost $3 million to our taxpayers.
3% in October, 2% at the end of November, 1% by the end of December.
If they pay the year prior versus paying this year?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. They're due in January, so if you pay
Okay.
October, November, December, there's a discount.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you.
Wes, on the Boerne High School, the band booster, it's a big number, obviously, 60,000. And that just wasn't being reported by them throughout the year, or how did that accumulate so big in June?
There was a little catch-up that needed to be done there. They were doing those things. It just wasn't recognized by the administration. Boerne Band Boosters gave a report that showed some things that weren't cash.
Great. All right, any other questions for Mr. Scott? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the budget amendments, donation report, and tax collection report as presented.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Scott, we move on to the budget and tax rate hearing.
A long time ago in 22-23, we started talking about the 23-24 budget. We've had a number of meetings, a number of input from folks around the district. Had a lot of feisty meetings where people fought for what they believed in, and came up with some priorities. Try to budget. We have three budgets that we need to adopt tonight: the general fund, the debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund. Assumptions, like we talked about in workshop, our property values we're estimating are going to go up 21%. Actually, through the appraisal district is still going through the appeals process through the end of the month. So we'll find out at the end of July what that actually comes in at, but right now we're estimating a $2.3 billion increase to our base. We are also estimating that our demographers PASA report that they gave us in November will bring in 11,263 students, and that'll result in an ADA of 10,503 students at 93.5 per month. That's almost 150 student increase in ADA over the prior year. Whoops, wrong way. There is a picture of our tax rates since House Bill 3 was implemented. The last year for that was in 1819 at $1.35. It is declined every year. This year, according to current law, it would go down almost 8 cents. There is a little room, even under current law, for it to go down a little bit farther. If you buy the last House proposal before the first special session ended, it would go down an additional 16 cents on top of that. Where it lands, nobody knows today, right? Okay. We came up with the priorities of growth positions, compensation, and then budget initiative packages for items that would lie outside those first two priorities. Administration is recommending these items be added to the general fund this year. Would be 7 positions that were funded by ESSER last year that as ESSER go away, we absorb back to the general fund. 18 FTEs growth positions to the tune of over $1 million. Compensation benefits increase at $2.5 million. I'll let Dr. Howard go into the details of that, steal her thunder. The remaining items are the budget initiative packages that went out. We had room for, and this is what we have room for. Taking last year's budgeted revenues, have an additional $8 million in local funds, the absolute majority of that from the property increase because of the state aid formulas and our rising values. Our actual state aid will go down 7 million. That leaves us with $108 million to general fund. At a base budget of $109 million, taking away $300,000 in recurring costs, keeping $600,000 in the budget because of a timing issue that we get to complete before school starts this year. Our next year's recapture, we're estimating go up $700,000 to $9.4 million. Just as a side note, the latest calculations on recapture 7. But that'll be entirely contingent on June property. The scorecard additions that we just discussed in the previous slide at $4.4 million leaves a total expenditures at $1.7. We recommend a $1.7 million budget deficit. Very reasonable for the district with a conservative. Okay. That is the general fund. The debt service fund, we rate a $39.2 million property tax levy with 30% INF rate. We have a little over $21 million in scheduled principal and interest. We will dedicate towards early defeasance in December. Just as a reminder, that $17 million rate of dollars. The last fund that we need to adopt is the Child Nutrition Fund. We're required to adopt a balanced budget. We're recommending a $3.8 million revenue goal and expenditure goal for the Child Nutrition Fund with a meals goal of $950,000. That is a slight increase. And at this point in time,
Mr. President, Dr. Price, and board members, I am so pleased to be able to come to you tonight to talk about the proposal for the 23-24 salary increase for our staff. As we touched on this past week in our budget workshop, we talked a little bit about where we fall in comparison to our competitors. And when I say our competitors, that's a pretty broad statement. We've narrowed it down to some key districts that we tend to lose or gain staff from throughout the year. The campuses or districts across the state of Texas are broad in their pay ranges, but right now we're just focused on ESC 20. And I wanted to share this publicly so that there's a very good understanding of some of the things that we look at with regard to trends in salary. And when it comes to teacher pay, one of the things we always look at is what is starting teacher pay. That is for a 0-year experienced teacher or educator coming into a public school for the very first time. I delineated here in the list that's been provided to you districts that have already announced their 23-24 rates. So those are the rates that will be going into next year. Everybody else is reflecting 22-23 rates. So just so that you can get a good idea here, if we're looking at the 0-year, Boerne ISD falls in 10th place. Now, a few years ago, if you recall, we were in 6th place. So over the years, we're starting to slip further behind, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. For 0-year pay starting at this time, Northside is our primary competitor, and they are also our closest neighbor. This is where we are getting most of our teaching staff from, that we are recruiting away from districts. So you would often question, why would they leave a $59,000 position or turn down a $59,000 position to come and work in Boerne for $52,000? The reality is that we can offer so much more than a paycheck. When you're coming from a system as big as Northside, you're a number. You're just another number in the big system. Here at Boerne, you're part of our family, and we're very proud of that.
using the same kind of information, you're now looking at 5-year data, and you can see here that Judson ISD on the east side of San Antonio has moved into first place for the 5-year. Boerne ISD still remains at the bottom, right below Carmel ISD. When you're looking at 10-year, Northside moves back into the first position there. And again, Boerne ISD is still in the 10th place. And then the 15-year, which is really the years between 10 and 15 are critical when you think about the quality and experience of a classroom teacher. If you have a teacher that is between 10 to 15 years or more, that teacher is seasoned, that teacher is equipped, that teacher is experienced, and that is the target group that you really want to focus on when we're thinking about retention. So for several years, we had worked very hard to make sure that we were at least capturing salary increases to make sure that 10 to 15 year group was very targeted. We did things such as at the very first year I was here, so that's almost 6 years ago now, we decompressed the step scale, so that allowed people that were essentially capping out to now have some progression for growth. So when you're thinking about the 15-year, this is going to be pivotal to when you think about people who leave the industry. These aren't just going to be people who go to another district, okay? These are people that we've got this last chance to make sure that they retire from Boerne. I wanted to give you a really good visual. And the thing that is really interesting about this chart that I want to draw some attention to, you may recall a few years ago that Boerne ISD did an excellent job to make our line a direct slope increasing, okay? Things like Judson, Northside up at the top there, you're looking at Alamo Heights, are showing that very flat and increasing progression of their salary trend. That is what we want to look like. And just a few years ago, we did look like that. And prior to COVID, we did look like that. We did have a year in there where we gave a 1% increase to our staff and then opted to give a retention incentive mid-year. And though we appreciate those retention incentives, it greatly impacts the trajectory of our salary increases and thus dropping us at that 5-year mark down. So you can see now, as we are right below Comal ISD there, we are, I would say, between the 10 to 15 year mark, that line is starting to flatline, and that is not healthy for our district. So as we continue to look forward, that will be something that this office will make sure that we're paying attention to, is that we continue to put a plan in place that will start straightening that line back out, okay? That means that we'll do things like decompress at certain steps. Maybe we expand some of the steps so that there's greater room for growth for all of our teachers. This was important to take a look at because I can tell you just a few years ago, Judson ISD, Northside ISD did not have those linear lines. And so they have been very committed to their goal to make that linear trajectory for salary increases for their staff a priority. So at this time, the administration would like to humbly request that the school board support us in the decision to grant our staff, all teachers, auxiliary, paraprofessionals, and professionals, a 3.44% of the midpoint increase. What that will translate to for our teachers is a $2,000 increase as part of their annual step. That means that that is in pocket part of their gross wages to take home each year as an additional $2,000. Because we have built in some of that decompression, there will be a band of teachers between years 10 to 15 who get slightly higher than that. It's because it's naturally built in so that we can start leveling out that line that I was showing you before. But again, that 3.44% for teachers will result in a $2,000 a year increase. For auxiliary, the hourly rate will change between 55 cents to $1.04. Paraprofessionals, that includes all of our clerical staff and our classroom instructional aides, their increase will be an hourly increase of 55 cents to $1.41 per hour. And professionals will see an increase between $9.60 to $22.36 a day. That yields a salary increase of approximately $2.4 million, which is a great gesture. It's a huge step. It's been a while since we've done this, and we would be so grateful for your consideration of that 3.44%. And we always consider benefits as part of our total compensation package here in the district. And first and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Senna for partnering with Human Resources each year to make sure that we have data that we can reflect upon to be able to bring you solid recommendations. I just wanted to show and to make a public announcement that TRS has announced increase for this region. Region 20 did see an approximately $30 increase to premiums for the upcoming plan year. I'd like to just note that just very slightly north of us, Comfort ISD is going to see a $90 increase to their premiums. Why is that? We're just next door neighbors. It's because Comfort ISD has opted to partner with ESC 13. And so they're getting the rates from that region versus the rates of the hospitals that their employees are probably going to here in San Antonio. So though we are unfortunate that we do see an increase, it is not as great as that other parts of the state of Texas are seeing. But we also wanted to ask for your consideration tonight that the board would consider as part of our total compensation a little more on the district contribution to offset the increases that some of our employees will be experiencing. What you're looking at here is current year information, so what our employees are currently paying on their own and what the district is paying. I'd like to draw attention again that you have opted to differentiate the level of contribution based upon the employee plan election, which is very generous, and it really caters to our families and those that are not on the employee-only plan. And so we really support the whole family aspect here. Coming this year, you're going to see that shift, and so I can show there in that far column for premium increases based on the plan type or the plan election, the level of increases our employees are going to be seeing per month for their benefits. So we're asking for the district to increase their contributions just slightly so that we can ensure that our employees have manageable premiums of out-of-pocket expenses for themselves on their own employee portion. Again, very competitive as far as what employees are paying. We have other districts in this region, their employees are paying over $150 on employee only. So we've asked that we slightly increase those contributions. So again, I'm just going to go back real quick to last year. The district was contributing for employees only $331. We're requesting that we go to the $335. For the employee child, it was $356 last year. This year, we're asking you to go to $365. Last year, for employee spouse, it was $381 the district was contributing. This year, we would like to ask, whoops, went the wrong way there, the $395. And then on the employee family, last year, they were paying $406. And this year we're asking for a contribution of the $435. So just a slight increase, but an overall package of $78,000 that would be added to our salary increase, which would just bring us into the ballpark of a $2.44 million total compensation increase for our employees. So again, I would like to thank you on behalf of all of the employees for your consideration of this proposal. I can stand here not just as an HR employee, but a colleague of many talented and gifted individuals, and I would love to be able to celebrate this increase with them tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, questions for Mr. Scott or Dr. Howard? So, Dr. Howard, I think we're going to get to the compensation plan in a couple of minutes, but this is really the budget and tax rate hearing. So at this point in time, I would open up the budget and tax rate hearing, and see if there's anyone that would like to speak to the board. Mr. Lamping.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a retired school employee. I wasn't a teacher, but I was involved in facilities. I retired from Northeast School District as a director of safe and healthy schools. And one of the things we were concerned about was the sick building syndrome and the healthy buildings of our classes and our classrooms. And we had responsibility to make sure that our school buildings were adequate safety and healthy for the occupants. So I was a little, concerned when I read in the paper on the 13th that their Northeast had a average daily attendance of 93% last year. And when I was there, when we were there, and even the superintendent said it used to be 97%. And he tells us in the article that 1% increase in the average daily attendance was worth $4 million to that school district. I don't know what it is to our school district here, but I'm sure it's a substantial amount. And I know in the past, our ADA here has been in the 96% range, maybe not for the high schools, but at least in the elementary schools, and that was pretty good. So I'm a little concerned here also that we're only budgeting a 93.2% ADA for the coming year. So I was wondering what's going on. One of the things we found out was that, you know, I wasn't involved in COVID, but we had the swine flu, H1N1, and we were able to keep our schools open like you guys did with COVID. But one of the things that's very important is not mask or social distancing, but ventilation and filtration. And even now, CDC and the American Association of Heating and Ventilation Engineers are coming out and saying we need to increase the ventilation and we need to increase our filtration practices in our public buildings. I know you're doing something now for the nurses' clinics, increasing the ventilation and filtration in the nurses' clinics, but we need to look at all that through the whole classrooms especially. And I think you have some portable filtrations, and I'm encouraging you to continue to use those. But it's very important that we look at that. And when I look at the budget, the proposed budget, I only see a 5.5% increase in Function 51. I'm wondering, with the inflation and everything, if that's going to be enough to provide for the increased utility costs, the increased costs for energy management, and the increased costs of keeping our ventilation and filtration devices for safe and healthy buildings. So I don't know if you can change it right now, what you have proposed, but you might be looking at budget amendments for increase throughout the year.
Thank you, Mr. Lamping. Do we have can we have conversations regarding this? Any of those that you'd like to address?
A couple of things. We've been hit like everyone else with ADA since COVID. It's really, and I don't know so much if it's about illness as much about choices. To come to school, I think we got in some very bad habits. I know administratively, we got to the point where we're just happy to see the kids come. I think we talked about this today, tightening up those expectations, involving the parents more. We should be able to get back to the 96%. I feel strongly if we work towards our policies, our procedures, and making sure that we're following them and But on your point about air filtration, I agree with you. We have to do a very lean budget because of recapture. I do know that we believe that we will have some surplus fund balance coming up, and usually, and we've done this the past 2 years, we've come back in October and done a budget amendment for one-time cost, and some of those things that you're mentioning with maintenance and operations, that's where we address those and those one-time costs. So we'll come back with a budget amendment in October.
Any other comments from the public? All right, if there are none, then I will close the budget and tax rate hearing. And then we will move Mr. Scott to the actual budget adoption.
Yes, sir. You have in your materials the proposed budget by function and by revenue source for the general fund, the debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund. I don't have a lot to add to the presentation, so I will give it back to you unless you have questions.
All right, questions or comments for Mr. Scott?
Yeah, just a few comments. Overall, it looks like the budget's going up around between 4.5% roughly, 4.5% over this year's budget. Is that good? Is that not good? Well, that's what we have from revenue between state aid and property taxes. What's interesting is there's a metric that the state of Texas uses to keep their state budget within balance, and that's the combination of inflation and population growth. And so the state, it's in the Constitution that they have to keep spending within that metric. Well, that metric for us next year, if you add inflation, which I think is around 5%, it's come down 4 to 5%, and you factor in 4.5% growth, that metric for us would be 9%. But we only have available to us 4.5%. And this is a trend that was really, really bad before House Bill 3 passed in 2019. Then we caught up quite a bit, but it's resurrected in the past couple of years. And this is why one of our legislative priorities was an increase in the basic allotment, because it would be nice, to have more money available than 4.5% when your inflation and enrollment is 9%. So with that background, I'm actually, with what you've put together and what the administration has put together, it covers the extra teachers that we need for growth, which is essential. And it gives us a competitive raise compared to other districts. Now, when I was up in Austin last week at a legislative update put on by the Texas School Coalition, which are all your Chapter 49 property wealthy districts, I was talking to trustees from across the state. Plano is doing a 3% raise, and it's all with a deficit, fund balance. Eanes ISD is doing a 3%, and they get no extra yield from the Golden Penny, where we got $1.6 million from the Golden Penny because they're uber property wealthy. And they too are going into these districts, whether it's Eanes or Plano, Austin, they are all worried about, in a couple of years, really reducing their fund balance to dangerously low levels. They call it a fiscal cliff if the legislature doesn't act. Now, yeah, this budget technically has, a deficit. We also approved a deficit a year ago, and we're going to be in the black this year, okay? So our fund balance is going to grow again. And I know you've taken a very conservative approach on our investment, the interest that will accrue from the taxes that we receive. You've taken a very conservative approach to that. Our attendance rate was actually, I believe it was 0.2 of a point higher than what you're budgeting. So you're taking a conservative approach on that. And so I think fiscally, the administration is being conservative in a lot of their estimates, which means that I'm confident that we'll balance our budget, this year. But a lot of districts in the state of Texas are not doing that. They are intentionally going into significant deficits, which is a problem because they're banking on the legislature doing something with a special session in late August or September. And I don't think you can assume that this legislature is going to do any of that. They can't even agree on property tax relief. And they love to cut taxes. So this is, I appreciate that we're able to give out a competitive raise. I wish we could do more. I think everyone on this board would like to do more. I mean, that's not a debate. But to give out a competitive, and if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Price, this should get our starting pay for our teachers up to a little over roughly $54,000, maybe a little bit more in that range. And 6 years ago it was $44,000. So we've gone up $10,000 in 6 years. I mean, that's beyond the rate of inflation. So we're trying to do what we can do. So in any event, I feel good about the extra staff that we have to cover the growth. And other things like eliminating the fine arts fees. That's kind of a nuisance. The Ag Barn expansion, we saw how popular that was a year ago. So I think considering we have 4.5% more money against a 9% inflation enrollment growth, I think there's a lot of good stuff in this budget, and we're also in a position to pay off a lot of our bond, which is a good thing. So those are just some thoughts that came to my mind,
Other comments? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2023-2024 budget for the General Operating Fund, Child Nutrition Fund, and Debt Service Fund as presented.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. I would just compliment also the administration. There's a lot of work that went into this. Obviously, very important. This is step one, so everyone understands this is the approval of the budget. We don't approve a tax rate. We won't be able to do a tax rate until October, I believe, is kind of projected right now. I'm sorry, August or September, if the legislature acts. So that is step one. So we will move on to compensation plan. Dr. Howard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Trustees, Dr. Price, we are recommending the starting pay for our teacher, nurse, and librarian pay scale to be elevated from the $52,250 to $54,250 for the starting of the 23-24 school year. That will reflect as a $2,000 increase to the step that already exists for all of those folks on that staff. Additionally, we are going to recommend the 3.44% of the midpoint, and that's not of the base salary, so it's the pay grade, the low, the mid, and the high of the midpoint of all of the pay grades for auxiliary, paraprofessionals, and professional employees to bring to give the annual increase of their midpoint each year. So again, to increase the starting pay for our teachers to $54,250, and then to give the 3.44% midpoint increase for all other employee groups. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. Comments?
I just wanted to comment on some of the data you showed earlier. I saw a chart at one point that showed that out of a lot of those school districts, we're either at the very bottom or close to the bottom in terms of how many dollars we get per student per year in funding from the state. And so, when you look at those numbers, it's, well, Boerne's towards the bottom there. Well, we get about the lowest of any of those school districts in dollars per student per year, which is directly related to how much we can pay our staff, right? I think we were talking about the staff compensation is 86% of the entire budget, right? And so it's almost all of it. And so I'm really glad about what we're talking about doing here as far as the larger raise, maybe a little more than some of the surrounding districts. I think we did that last year as well. We had a little bit larger, so we are kind of, even with less money, we're starting to catch up, maybe hopefully surpass some of these districts. And so I'm feeling really good about that. And as Mr. Senna said, doing it in a way that, you know, hopefully we're not hitting a deficit every year. We're still being responsible for the taxpayers and with our money. So that's my comment.
Well, I think that's a really good point that you made there. The district that's closest to us in revenue per student is Comal, our next door neighbor. We're within, I think, $100 per student. We're probably $1,000 behind Northside or Northeast in revenue per student. That's a lot of money. Over 60,000 kids in Northeast, that's $60 million bucks, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm doing my math right. That's a huge difference. So I'm appreciative of the fact that you put on that comparison of the salaries. Comal had already announced their 23-24, so we're now ahead of them by a couple of thousand. My daughter teaches there. She won't be happy to hear that, but hey, you know.
And Dr. Howard, along with the compensation, I just want to thank you for bringing attention to how the insurance has gone up and just the contributions from the district to help offset that. That is one of those hidden benefits that employees often tend to forget that cost their employers money, but definitely a great benefit to be able to contribute a little bit more to those benefits.
We appreciate the support. Thank you.
And to that point, Jessica, if you go back to 6-7 years ago, I think it's close to $1 million more that the district is putting in premium support. That's a lot of money. We're, you know, it's a significant amount. And we did a study back in 2015. We were in the 43rd percentile of districts in the state of Texas in what we contributed to benefits, and we've improved that to 55th%. We're still, you know, it would be great if we were 70th, but, you know, we've gone from 43 to 55 in the last 6 years, and that's at a cost of $1 million.
And to see those contributions across the board for every employee.
All employees.
All
I think
employees.
that's an important message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Wednesday when we had the workshop, the data that was presented comparing us to the other districts was a big eye opener, and we have fallen behind in years. And I don't know that we're necessarily catching up, but as much as we definitely like to, but making sure that we're not falling further behind, I think was kind of the notion that I took out of our workshop on Wednesday. And so it was a little more than I think we wanted to bite off getting to the 3.44%, but I think it's necessary so that we keep that trajectory going in the right direction and not allow that gap to widen, especially between us and Northside. So, Joe,
I like that context a lot about not letting the gap widen. I think we have to be careful. I mean, this is a very fiscally responsible budget, which number one, I appreciate. And even within that, we're able to provide what is objectively a substantial raise. But given that it's an objectively substantial raise, be careful we don't communicate it in such a way that it kind of appears like the license plate example that Rich gave, because for a new starting teacher, even a middle teacher, they can't afford to work here if that's their only source of income. So while we are doing a good job to not let that, I think that gap widen and I know it's not anybody's intent up here, I just think be cognizant of, even with the changes that we're making, you pretty much can't live and work in Boerne with the salary of a teacher right now. We want to make that better. And to do that fiscally responsible will take a lot of time. But I also think in a reasonable perspective, you know, we mentioned, you know, I know we like taking people from Northside and we use them as a number a lot. We're never going to pay what Northside or Northeast pays. And they also have a much higher proportion of brand new teachers than we do, because a lot of people go to work there to learn that they don't want to be teachers. And that's not what we want here. And so focusing on everything, not just the pay, but also recognizing that while we're raising it, I think substantially, it's still very, very difficult to live and work here if you're just talking about a teacher's salary.
That's true. It would be interesting, Dr. Howard, if we did a study. It's been a couple of years since we did this, but that's always been the fear that our teachers don't live here, and that's really not true. I know it was 66% a couple of years ago. It'd be interesting to see what zip codes they live in. Is it 06, 015? And then if I'm not mistaken, when we did this analysis a couple of years ago, when you add in Leon Springs, the UTSA area, just over the line in Comal County, we were up to almost 90% of our teachers lived within a 15-minute commute to the district. So I think we should do that again to see where things stand. You know, that's kind of an update we probably ought to do each year.
I'll make sure that Dr. Price has that information to share with you all.
Any other comments? All right, if not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the 2023-24 compensation plan.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fryer.
All right, last item on the agenda is future business items. Our next board meeting is going to be in August. We traditionally do not meet in the month of July over the summer. That meeting, we will look at renewing our 4-H adjunct facility, our faculty agreements, and then the quarterly and annual investment reports, among other things. So if there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. I heard a motion. And a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.